Could you help us through the role? And don't forget to say where you're calling in from.
Yeah, say the jurisdiction that you're calling in from, so city, township, or village. And then also, as you may notice, we have Dr. Missy Stoltz here with us tonight as our special guest. So if you want to say a little bit, something more than your name and where you're calling in from, like perhaps if you're representing an organization here, and then maybe a little fun trivia thing about yourself, like, I don't know what pets you have running around right now, maybe your favorite fictional character, or I don't know, any sort of interesting tidbit about yourself. So go ahead. I'll start with Stephen.
Hey, present, Salt Lake City, Utah.
Oh.
And that's the tidbit also.
All right. Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer, present. I'm here in Ann Arbor, and I know Missy because I get to be an A20 collaborator. I'm super thrilled that you're here to talk to us tonight. I am betting that I am the only one of this group that has been certified to coach Olympic weightlifting.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
All right, Alan, you followed that up.
Wow.
I'm Alan Haber in the Enchanted Forest on 3rd Street on the Old West Side, Ann Arbor, Michigan. Bamboo it is. And I just came from the ambassadors program in Gallup Park. So I galloped over along with Missy. So it's been a busy day. And right before that, the powwow had its debriefing. So I'm catching my breath between here, there, and whatever is next.
All right, thank you. All right, Sarah. Oh, Sarah's not here today. Sarah is officiating a wedding, so
that's right.
Sarah's interesting tidbit of the day. All right, Jeffrey.
I'm Jeff Henney from Ann Arbor, and I'm a professor of sustainability and economics, so that might be of some interest at Cleary University.
Thank you. All right, Camilla.
Hi, I'm Camilla. I'm calling from the city of Ann Arbor. I am a urban planning graduate student, and my fun fact is I'm graduating in 23 days.
Hey, congratulations.
Yay. Nice. All right, Rita.
I'm Rita Mitchell from speaking from Ann Arbor, and I am a member of the Environmental Commission and the recently named A2 Pollinator Network. And I give points to anyone who can name the flower that's behind me.
Is it Trillium?
No.
No.
I won't do it for too long. This is called Dutchman's Breeches. It's a very early spring ephemeral, and look at that big bumblebee. It's one of the early blooming plants, and queen bumblebees need early pollen, and that's one of the plants they go for. And they shake it out of the flower. It's very cool.
Wow.
Called buzz pollination.
Very nice. All right, Alice.
Well, I can't beat that, but I'm Alice Ralph. I'm attending here in Ann Arbor on the East Stadium Boulevard. I have 5 lanes of traffic in front of me. But I guess I'm an architect, and I've been involved with many civic issues for some time, including most notably the tree line, as originally called the Ann Arbor Greenway, and also the center of the city. It's about 15 years ago. Looking forward to having an EV vehicle sometime soon. Thanks.
Great, we've got Frank up next.
Frank Wilhelm from the 5th Ward. I have many uninteresting things that I've done. I was on the Historic District Commission. Most of these things were half a century ago. I got busy with my career at the university, the Ross School of Business. Still playing hockey, I think. I'm wavering now whether I'm going to continue that, but And we can go offline later if you want to know anything else, Missy. Actually, Missy called me out at a at a initiating committee meeting. I was ballyhooing my age, and she says she doesn't cut any of the older folks any slack. So I have to really step up from here on in. That gave me some backbone. Thank you.
Nice. All right, Adam.
Adam Zemke calling in from the 5th Ward as well, although probably a different precinct than Frank. And Missy, it's good to see you again and engage in a different role. So thanks for being here.
And then we've got Mr. Dehoney, who I know you know, Missy. But we're doing roll call, Mr. Dehoney, so you need to say that you're here and where you're calling in from.
Milton Dehoney, I'm here in Ann Arbor. Thank you.
Great. And Councilmember Briggs?
Yep, Erica Briggs here in the city of Ann Arbor. The fun fact, I guess, for me today was that I was working to overcome my fear of riding with clipless pedals as much as I like to bike. I generally do not clip in. And so that's what I was working on because I'm doing a bike trip from Grand Junction to Moab in late May, and I probably will need them. So.
Wow.
Yeah, that's quite a ride. Yeah. Did you flip on over or did you?
I did not. I think that'll be in an upcoming bike. I'll report on that next month.
Cool. All right, Lisa.
I'm Lisa Dish, Ward 1 representative, Ann Arbor. I am in my basement with my dried hydrangeas, which were a gift from my mother, in a 125-year-old crock.
Ooh, wow.
Very cool. All right, and that's everybody. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Heather. You want to state a fun fact about yourself since we all had the opportunity?
Oh gosh, I forget that this is a group that turns my icebreakers back around. I never prepare for it. I don't know, fun fact for me. Gosh, I don't know. I just took a trip to New Orleans. How about that? That's still on my mind. I've still got a little bit of afterglow happening with that one. That was I had never been to that city, and it was really a great experience.
Well, I think you'll have to learn how to say New Orleans.
Yeah. I'm working on that still, yes.
Yeah, I should have said it's my birthday today. That's probably the most trivial thing I could think of.
Were we supposed to give a fun fact about ourselves? Is that what the question was?
Yeah, so Missy can get to know members. But yes, I'd love to hear a fun fact from you if you've got one.
Oh,
You asked.
I did ask. Probably right around 1999 when I was deputy mayor of Louisville, Kentucky. I got to have dinner with Muhammad Ali and 3 or 4 other people when we were planning the creation of the Muhammad Ali Center, which is now open in Louisville if you ever go there. And for me, a kid that grew up in Louisville and saw him, through the years, it was a thrill of my life to sit beside him.
Wow.
I have a picture of the 2 of us, and it's just fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's
very
amazing.
Cool.
Wow. Cool.
Well, with that, we have a very busy agenda tonight. So if we could move through these things as quick as possible, that would be really good. The first thing up is the approval of the agenda. Heather sent out a link to the agenda on Legistar earlier today. Are there any questions, or could we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Did we receive it earlier? I have it, but I'm surprised that we would only have seen it today.
It was posted. It was posted on Legistar last week, but I thought I should send out another link today so that people know where to find it.
Okay.
Any questions at all about the items for tonight?
I greatly appreciate that it was sent out. Is item 11 recommendations report? We were to have on the agenda our annual advice to the city council that is coming up. Is that what that item is?
Yes, that's correct. There's a couple of items we're going to take really do some deeper work on tonight, in addition to hearing from Dr. Stoltz and others. But there's the Parks Advisory Commission report that we're going to provide to Parks. We're going to start talking about that tonight, and then we are going to talk about what we want to report on to City Council tonight as well.
Thank you.
Erica.
Yeah, I just was hoping that maybe we could just move Dr. Stoltz's update before member news and updates, just to respect her time tonight.
I have no objection to that.
No.
Could we get a motion to amend to adopt the agenda as?
I move to adopt the agenda as amended.
All right.
I second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, excellent. So we have the agenda as amended. Let's go ahead and move on to approval of the minutes from last meeting. They are in the agenda. Any questions at all about the minutes? And if not, can we have a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes.
All right. Second. Seconded by Frank. Excellent. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. All right, motion carries. With that, we have public comment. Heather, do we have any members of the public?
We do, and we have a hand raised. It's phone number ending with 326. So I'm allowing you to talk right now if you'd like to go ahead.
Hello, this is Jeff Crockett. Can you all hear me?
We can.
Yep.
Great. Okay, my fun fact is I started playing in recreational softball starting in 1975 in the city leagues, and morphed over playing at Leslie Park for many years with the same group of guys. And as a result of that, I have no ego left. So I just want you to know that that's where I'm at, which prepares me greatly for this statement tonight. And I sent this statement to Heather, and you may or may not have gotten it because I sent it late. But my name is Jeff Crockett, and I am calling from 506 East Kingsley, and I'm a member of the initiating committee, and I'm the leader of the Green Team, which has been developing a community garden on Plot D3. It has been there it's been 3.5 years since voters passed Proposition A. And in late December, City Council passed Resolution R-19-569, a resolution to support the center of the city, interim use and long-term planning for the center of the city library lot property. One of the resolved clauses of that was resolved that the city and the Downtown Development Authority will coordinate to implement the center of the city charter amendment with a focus on interim changes to the use of the street level surface of the library lane parking structure and Liberty Plaza to occur beginning July the 1st, 2020. And that's quite a long time ago. And in my opinion, there's really no excuse for delaying the removal of parking one day longer. One of the more curious aspects, though, of the activation of the commons is the absence of data about parking vacancy rates at the library lot parking structure. So last Friday, I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and start to collect some. So I started to collect some data, and as it turns out, it's fairly easy because there's an LCD screen on a post at library lane that indicates the vacancies. So today, for example, the parking lot vacancy was 581. Yeah, got that right, 581. There are 744 parking spots in the entire complex. That meant that there were 163 cars parked in the lot today. Except for April the 2nd during the hash bash, the parking vacancy rates varied from 575 to 595. I was very surprised, and you may be too. I had no idea that the vacancy rates were so high. And on April 1st, I went down to the different levels and found that level 3 and 4, for example, were completely vacant. I was really surprised. So it seems pretty clear that the DDA needs to be asked to provide longer-term data and to learn when the last time was that the library lot parking structure was filled with capacity. The bottom line is this. Clearly, the removal of 32 parking spots on ground level can easily be accommodated by vacant underground parking spots. And it should be easily accommodate a common storage facility on level 4. And it is worth noting that the library square already has a storage facility in place on level 4. Please work with the DDA to remove parking as soon as possible. The voters have waited long enough. Thank you for your consideration.
Jeff, any other members of the public wishing to speak, Heather?
Yep, Robert Black. Go ahead.
You hear me, Heather?
Yep.
Yes. All right, thank you very much. Just a fun fact for you guys too, as a principal of Sun Structures Architects on the corner of 4th and Liberty for 30 years, one of the early 1980s art fair meetings is we ventured out onto the street on a Friday with a bunch of sidewalk chalk and began what I believe is the very first Chalk the Park experience that happened at Liberty Plaza and around the downtown. Anyway, that's a piece of history. I can't go back as far as Frank does, but that's a good one. So a couple of comments about the past. Progress on the center of the city is growing well. Your work this past year is showing great results. You are building alignment together, fueling common purpose. Your working groups are effective, especially the comparable communities results. You are beginning the block partners outreach, and it's very good, but 2 key players need to be engaged as soon as possible: Ann Arbor District Library and First Martin Corporation. They will change the vector of this project dramatically. Their involvement is critical. The RFI that you sent out, although you got only 2 responses, has given you a broad spectrum of ideas to consider as you advise the city on sending out an RFP for professional services. And I really appreciate the public feedback that's forming, both from Mr. Crockett and from letters like Kitty Kahn and Libby Brooks. I would hope that more and more people get engaged to comment on this process. The initiating committee, which I'm a part of with Mr. Crockett and others, has been a great ally in supporting the center of the city work, especially as a driving force to plan, prepare, and carry out activating events like the food, art, and nutrition event last year to activate the comments recommendations. It's creating a dynamic public spirit, capturing public sentiment and feedback, and kudos to Mr. Crockett, to Odile and Alan and others for the green team, Rita and others, Chad, Monfreda, for growing the garden in there as a metaphor for the commons. It's really working. People are becoming engaged, and that blossoming garden will be an example for you. In the future, the initiating committee's plans for Earth Day, you should check out. I know Leslie Science Center has some amazing events. I was one of the architects that created the Science Center out there, the lab. The broader engagement of the city government will happen at the Earth Day event, including Dr. Stoltz will be speaking about A20 and OSI. You'll hear from city council candidates. The public conversation is growing. There are important, diverse speakers on key topics like the Green Brick Road, Indigenous peoples, public power, climate lobby, student actions, and much more. But my favorite thing is Matt Altruda coming in from Sonic Lunches and his backing by the Bank of Ann Arbor to bring more music beyond Liberty Plaza and out into the heart of the city. The drumming that will come, I've worked with this person drumming, and Matt's work with the bands he's bringing together are going to really create a beautiful spirit that will drive other events this year. So you have an ambitious agenda tonight. I wish you respectful and attentive dialogues with each other, geared toward aligned and purposeful actions as a new spring starts to blossom in Ann Arbor, and especially in its center of the city heart. Good luck and have fun.
You, Robert? Anyone else?
No one else with their hand raised.
All right. In that case, we will close public comment and move into the update from the Office of Sustainability and Innovations. and turn the floor over to Dr. Stoltz. Dr. Stoltz, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It is so delightful to be with you all tonight in this virtual space that we are sharing. I appreciate a little bit of your time. I'm going to take you on a whirlwind adventure. So get excited, strap in, or flail the hands, whatever you need to do, because here we go. Just to kind of start us off, how many of you, via a show of hands, have heard of something called a sustainable energy utility? Anyone? Well, we're going to talk about it. So let me take you back in time. In January, City Council adopted a resolution that asked the city to look at a lot of different options to meet our A20 carbon neutrality and equity goals. And some of those pathways include looking at traditional municipalization, looking at things like virtual power purchase agreements. I could throw acronyms at you all day. There's a lot of acronyms in the energy system. But one of the things that we proposed was exploring a sustainable energy utility. And council directed the city to move forward with getting public feedback on this concept. And you are the first that we are coming to out of the lineup to start talking about this. So I just want to take a few minutes and tell you a little bit about the sustainable energy utility in the hopes as leaders of our community, you feel comfortable talking to your friends and neighbors so we can start registering much more public feedback. Is this a good idea? What do we like? What do we not like? Should we pursue it? Should we not pursue it? So no obligation to move forward, but I'm hoping by the end of this conversation, you are so jazzed anyway, you need to be jazzed that you're ready to talk to people about a sustainable energy utility. So I'm going to take you through a very short presentation. You ready for a journey? Here we go. Let's go. All right. Forgive me. I'm going to go off camera because I'm looking at a different screen and this is going to be bonkers for all of us. So I am with you. Here we go. Can you see the slides first?
Yep.
Okay, great. Still see them in full screen? Which screen is sharing?
Not full screen.
You can't because it's sharing in the wrong side. Please hold. Well, that's painful. We're going to fix this. Don't you love technology? It's really delightful when it works and it's painful when it doesn't. All right, let's try again. It is in PowerPoint. Check. Well, monkey. This is not going to work for me. We're going to try one more time. Here we go. We're just going to do it. Can you see it now?
Yep.
All right, I'm dead in the water, so I can't see it. So I'm going to hope that I'm up. Just for funsies, are you seeing the introductory slide, or are you seeing emissions by source?
We're seeing
the. Oh, go ahead.
We're seeing Michigan energy context. Third slide down.
You're not seeing what I want.
No, I'm sorry. It's third slide.
No, we're
now we're on the front. Yep. Now we're on the
front. Okay. Great. And are you seeing it in slide view? This is painful, y'all. I really am not this tragic normally. Are you seeing notes?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Yeah. This is tragedy. My boss is on the line and it's just not looking good here. So Milton, close your eyes. We're going to try this again. Right. Let's move you. Here we go, friends. I'm giving up.
We'll promise not to read the notes if that's how you have to go.
Yeah, for the constellation, they're too small to read.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's just like silly. All right. We'll blow it up and we'll just play. Here we go. We'll make it look like it's real. All right. So I am super excited to be here to tell you a little bit about the proposed sustainable energy utility, which is modeled to be 100% clean, reliable, locally built, and community-owned power. So just to lay a little bit of context about why this is important, we have, as I know almost all of you, so I know that you know we have a goal in our community of being carbon neutral in a just and equitable way by the year 2030, known as A20. And guiding that work is an understanding of what our emissions profile actually looks like. And here locally, 40% of our emissions come from our the electricity used in our built environment. We also know that our buildings, when you look at the energy we use to heat and cool them, use 2/3 of the emissions, or emit 2/3 of the emissions that come from our community. We're also working to electrify. And so whether that's our vehicles or whether that's our building stock. And so doing what we can to make sure the electricity that actually flows and powers our life is clean, reliable, and resilient is really, really important. It's a key part of the work that we're doing, as is working towards this idea of a just transition. And I just want to share a little bit about Michigan's energy context with you, because I think this is important to understanding what we can and cannot, oh, that's funsies, what we can and cannot do locally. Just one second. You may know, this is a little bit wonky, but you may know that Michigan has what is called the Foot Act. And for the purposes of the city of Ann Arbor, we signed a franchise agreement to have power provided to our community in 1902. And that predates the Foot Act. There's a lot of history here, and I'm not going to belabor it. I can direct you to more information if you'd like to dive in. But basically what ended up happening, this has been tested in the courts, is that our franchise pre-Foot Act is in perpetuity. So we can't, you sometimes hear stories of Minneapolis, how they negotiated a franchise agreement and they got better terms and conditions. We can't negotiate our franchise. DTE, its predecessor, but now DTE has the right to serve our community in perpetuity. Wah, wah, there's the news. Here's the positive. The Michigan Constitution protects the rights of cities and villages to create their own municipal utility. And this can be done by either a taking, aka condemnation and a buyout of an incumbent utility in their infrastructure, or via the creation of a supplemental utility. Now, to date, every community that has started their own municipal electric utility within Michigan, with the last being Zeeland, which formed in 1902, has done so through initial startup. They didn't have to take because they started it themselves. And that sort of makes sense because you can imagine it's really expensive to buy out an incumbent utility's infrastructure. It's also really expensive to stand up parallel poles and wires that run adjacent. And that's what you would traditionally have had to do if you created a supplemental utility. So what do we do? Well, what if we created that supplemental or complementary utility that was community owned, that provides electricity from local solar and battery storage systems installed in homes and businesses in our community? And what if that community-owned utility provided 100% clean, reliable, locally built and affordable electricity built right here in our community by our community? This utility would give residents a choice for where they procure their energy, a choice that we don't have today. And this parallel utility would not duplicate the traditional grid with all of its vulnerabilities, but focus on generating new, clean, reliable power now. And that is the vision of a sustainable energy utility. As envisioned, a sustainable energy utility would focus, we call it an SEU for short, so hence the acronym you'll see a lot, would focus on generating local clean energy that would feed directly into our homes, businesses, places of worship, community centers. And this clean energy would be paired with storage to help improve energy reliability, and offered in conjunction with things like deep energy waste reduction programs to help our residents lower their energy costs and usage, all while improving comfort. The concept of an SEU is grounded in choice, providing all of us in Ann Arbor another way to procure a large portion of our energy, one that's coming, again, from clean, local, reliable, and resilient power sources. Y'all are doing great. You're about halfway done already. As we designed and conceptualized the SEU, what is important is it would enable a lot more people to get the benefit of things like solar. And it would do this by directly paying for the installation of solar systems on residential and business roofs, carports, ground-mounted systems, open space where it makes sense and is viable for one reason or another. And what's important in this model is residents wouldn't be the owners, an individual resident wouldn't be the owner of that solar system. The public or the sustainable energy utility would. Residents would then subscribe to purchase their energy at a rate that's based on the cost of installing that system and the SEU's operational needs. They would pay a cost from that system or from their neighbor's system that's installed on their roof or their neighbor's roof. If all the residents' power needs are met, the excess generation from that solar system flows into a battery. This means that residents could still have power if the big traditional grid goes down. So this is supplemental. This means you could actually have two providers of power, with the SEU providing the vast majority of the power to our community through clean, reliable sources. Here's the good news. What I just said, it's already possible today. I already do it today at my house, right? I already have a solar and storage system. I just happen to own that system. But in this model, the sustainable energy utility or the public would own that system. Additionally, the SEU would not be limited by current utility restrictions that constrain solar system sizes or the amount of solar that's allowed on the grid. You may know this is the 1% cap, which is something that we're working hard to push against, ideally make completely and totally go away. Instead, the SEU would seek to maximize the amount of solar that we have using all the viable sunny roof space. And over time, we are working to figure out how we would connect all these solar systems into microgrids, meaning that we really literally are sharing power with each other. The SEU could also offer robust energy waste reduction programs, thereby helping people lower demand and improve their comfort. These services would be available to anyone that participates in the SEU. That you don't have to get solar to participate in those kinds of programs. We could have lots of opt-in services. And ultimately the goal here, we all know the goal is to have improved comfort, to reduce our bills, to save energy, to address the climate crisis, to make sure equity is centered in this work. And what's super neat is that the SEU allows us to offer those programs through something called on-bill finance. On-bill finance is exactly what it says. The SEU, through that mechanism, is able to pay the upfront cost of these improvements, energy efficiency or even electrification upgrades. And residents pay those costs back through their utility bill over time. And this allows the cost of the improvements to stay with the home as opposed to the resident, right? So that helps reduce the upfront costs to make these kinds of improvements. And because this is a public utility, we can amortize those costs over longer periods of time, working to get as close to parity and ideally savings through these kinds of improvements. And what I mean by that is if Adam invests $5,000 in a new system and we can work with him to pay that back over 7 years and make sure that the payment is equivalent to his savings so that he has no change in bill, or ideally the payment is less than the savings he's actually going to get. Therefore, he actually reduces his bill, makes an improvement, gets more comfortable, and is, oh, by the way, helping to address the climate crisis. So that's one of the really powerful things about this tool is that it opens up opportunity to a lot more people than can traditionally invest in some of the more costly upfront kinds of things many of us are doing to address climate change. This is also true for beneficial electrification, which is here. Just want to flag that same mechanism I just talked about for energy efficiency applies there. So why? I know that I just gave you a lot to digest, but I just want to reiterate the core concept that we're unpacking through an SEU, which is the creation of a community-owned utility that focuses on generating local, clean, reliable energy fast. It's about leveraging existing technologies and practices, solar and storage, to reduce emissions quickly while improving reliability. It's about ensuring all Ann Arborites have access to solutions to improve comfort, reduce their bills, and reap the benefits of the clean energy economy. That is the core. And I just want to end by sharing a few examples of what this could look like in practice, just to kind of help drive is a bad word, bike this home. Haha. So first example, this would be a homeowner or a business that has good solar potential, but doesn't have the capital, ability, interest, whatever it might be to install solar on the roof. In this case, the individual would subscribe or enroll in the SEU as a supplemental utility to DTE. The SEU would work with that homeowner or business to conduct a needs assessment, identifying potential energy waste reduction opportunities, electrification opportunities, really maximize the solar design on their system. That homeowner or business identifies what opportunities they want to move forward with. They have the option of financing them through the on-bill finance program. And then we work with them to try to create the right financing package to make sure that it is really, really viable for them to make those payments. And of course, once those payments are paid off, the resident gets the full benefit of all of the improvements, right? So while that's also happening, we're installing solar on the roof, the SEU is. The residents continue to pay their bill as they always have. They pay per usage, kilowatt hour of usage, and they're paying per kilowatt hour of usage they draw from that solar system. If that solar system produces more power than they draw, then that is feeding into a battery that they're pulling energy from if the power goes down. And eventually that excess power is moving into the microgrid, helping power their neighbor's home who may not be able to have solar because they have glorious, glorious trees that we want to protect in the system. If the solar system doesn't produce enough energy, they're drawing from DTE because that is still a power supply that they have. So in this way, they have two bills. They're paying ideally the majority of their bill from the SEU and the renewable energy power that's coming from their roof, and whatever else they might need is being pulled from DTE. So that's one example. Second example, a resident or business wants to move forward, but that roof, for any number of reasons, just cannot handle solar. So we work with them to understand what energy waste reduction and beneficial electrification opportunities make sense. The individual, we do that same assessment. They customize that assessment, figure out what improvements they want to make. We make those improvements. They amortize them and pay them back over a period of time, having the option of going to the private market or using on-bill finance to make that a little bit more digestible. And they could register to join the micro or nano grid as soon as a density of people in their neighborhood sign up for the SEU. So as soon as we have enough energy in that system, in that region, we can have them be connected to the SEU and actually procure literal electrons to power their home. This individual also received two bills, but the difference is the one bill from the SEU is for the on-bill finance, should they choose to use it. The other is from DTE for the actual electrons that they're pulling until the SEU microgrid gets stood up. You're doing great, almost done. A third example is a resident who already has solar on their home or business. In this case, the resident would still be able to take advantage of all that energy waste reduction and beneficial electrification programming I talked about before. And the SEU could still enroll in the SEU for a battery if they currently don't have one. But they could also enroll in the SEU to sell their excess power to the utility. We are working on the modeling right now. The goal is to get as close as possible to net metering, right? The true value of that energy, getting that individual compensated at that rate, because that energy is going to flow to their neighbor, right? And it's going to be shared throughout the system. And that's how we make sure that everyone, to the extent that we can have access to this renewable energy system. Two more examples to finish out. A fourth is a multifamily rental. In this case, the SEU would work closely with the landlord, property owner, as well as the tenants to customize solutions that meet the individual needs. Different units might have very different needs. The entire building might have similar needs. So we've got to really do everything we did before, just at a different scale. Rentals are eligible for every single offering that we have through the program. And what's sort of neat is we've been working on green leases in our office, but when you pair that or just by itself on-bill financing, we address a lot of the tension in the landscape that exists between who makes the improvements and who reaps the benefits of the improvements in rental units. And that's really powerful and a way to kind of address that disincentive. And we've been talking to various landlords and property owners about this and what we can do to make sure that the SEU really supports them in this landscape. So this is all viable within the rental market and actually helps correct some of the problems that we're facing now with the disconnect between renters and landlords. And then the last example is of community solar. The truth is, in some cases, individuals are not going to have access to on-site renewable energy generation. In these cases, we would be working on off-site solar in common areas very close to a region that just doesn't have good solar potential for whatever the reason might be. That could be, the common areas could be things like parking lots, school rooftops, parks, shared places. It could be a community center. And in that case, the individual subscribes to take a portion of their energy to help power their life, their business, whatever it might be, from that community solar asset. In this way, anyone in the community can participate in the SEU, even if they don't own their own home, they don't have great solar potential, they're here for just a blink of an eye, but they can still be part of this movement. And in this way, individuals that subscribe for whatever amount they subscribe to the system, how many ever kilowatts, they get the benefit of those kilowatts and they pay for those kilowatts. So that's how we sort of slice and dice this example. So those are just a few. I am at the end, examples of how the SEU could work. I know this was really fast and furious. Just want to share, if you'd like to learn more, there are videos, there's really detailed fact sheets, there's really detailed trainings. There's a lot of information on our website, including the report that we drafted. It's super simple, a2gov.org/A2SEU. But if you are so kind, you personally, we would love you to go to the second bullet point and register your interest. Do you like it? Do you not like it? What are you looking for in your energy system? What don't you want in your energy system? Tell us if this is bonkers or if this lands for you and is something you want to see your community invest in. The survey launched today, and we are excited to get feedback. We would also appreciate, as leaders in our community, if you could share that this is now open and direct people to the website. If you feel comfortable talking to them, please do. And if you don't, and they have questions, please send them to send them to the email address in the third bullet point, because we want to make sure that every resident has the chance to give us their opinion on whether or not this is a viable pathway that the city should be pursuing. You made it. So I guess I'll just say thank you for letting me take a little bit of time to tell you about the proposed Ann Arbor Sustainable Energy Utility, which we envision as a clean, reliable, locally built, and affordable way to power our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stoltz. Are there any questions at all for Missy? Alice, I saw your hand up first.
Before, there's not a question. I'm sorry, Heather. Stephen got kicked out and he's waiting in the waiting room. He pinged me and asked me if I would let you know that he's caller 0204 with his hand raised.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Nope, you're fine. Alice, you want to go?
Yes, I will. I take note of the fact that our meeting is now more than 3/4 of an hour through our period of time. And I appreciate Missy's rapid fire presentation. However, the main question I have is that I would like to know, now that we've heard so much about the SEUs, how Missy might see the relationship between making a place at the center of our city and achieving the goals of A20, or maybe more specifically, the establishment of a supplemental community utility and establishing a place at the center of the city. I appreciate your compliment to us as leaders among those in the city, but you're here at our meeting, and I would like to know how an SEU might benefit our process, or how it is related to what we are doing here at this committee.
Yeah, well, so intentionally, I mean, we are going to every board and commission because you are leaders in the community. So I want to name that is part of the objective, right? That you are a voice that people listen to, and an opportunity just to share. These are ways to get involved and share your opinion within the community. In terms of your specific question, there are limitless ways that we could talk about activating the commons to align with sustainability, which I think and I hope is one of the core values of our community. It could be as simple as a kiosk that demonstrates all of the renewable energy that we are generating in our community, and the value and the benefit that has for all of us in the shared space. It could be demonstrations of renewable energy in that space so people can interact with it and feel it and see it and understand how it actually functions and benefits us. It could be a physical manifestation of the sustainability that we want to see throughout the rest of our community. I think that there's no limit to what's possible. I think without making it sound too fluffy, I've been talking to lots of people that want to have this conversation about what's the limit of our imagination of what we want this to be. I have too many ideas that you don't want to hear about how we can activate that space. But I would love to have a sidebar conversation with you anytime you would like to have one about what's possible in that space. I think the limit is what we can imagine.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions at all from Missy? Jeff?
Oh, yes. First of all, wonderful presentation. And I'm really excited about this, that you're doing this. I think it's really important to do it. I've always been very uncomfortable about our being so dependent on DTE. And just a very brief technical question. Do we have the battery technology currently to be able to actually do this? Because it's I know that Elon Musk and all the rest of them are building all these wonderful systems and what have you, but battery is still a problem. I mean, it's expensive still, and there's a ways to go as far as I can see to make it really sustainable and reliable. Maybe I'm not up to date, but can you speak to that?
The answer to that
use
is
the word storage rather than battery.
Yep, good question. So the answer is yes and no. That battery technology has and is changing so fast. We're seeing alternative forms of storage. There's lithium ion. We're testing lots of other things. Things are already at market, other materials that are fabulous, conductors and storers of energy sources. In the residential market, we have really good options around storage. So thinking about an individual home, the first phase of the SEU, that solar and storage, we have no concerns whatsoever. Sure. Commercial batteries are being deployed in a lot of other areas, like in the Southwest, in California at scale. We're not quite, I would say, ready to deploy a large number of commercial batteries yet. We're still doing our learnings in that landscape, but that's okay, because we can do a whole lot with that first system of residential batteries before we have to get to a commercial system that sort of allows for that microgridding phase. So yes and no, if that makes sense.
Sure. Thank you.
Good question.
Rita, you're up next.
You're on mute, Rita.
There, sorry. Thanks, Missy. I'm interested in knowing the proportion that you anticipate the SEU to provide of the energy total in the community. And I realize that the total is a variable kind of thing, and could expand over time. So, but if you can give some sense of what the expectations are for this, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you. It's an excellent question. So we worked with Google to do some analysis of the viability of Ann Arbor, only looking at rooftops. So we never looked at any ground mounted spaces because it was just easier to kind of take roofs from that initial assessment. Right now, our community uses roughly 440 megawatts on average of energy. Our rooftop assessment showed if we maximized those roofs, we're at 400 megawatts. So we can actually go much further than we thought. Now, I want to name, we're talking about electrification too, right? So demand will change. So we'll be increasing load. We'll be doing hopefully much more energy efficiency, which will bring that down a little bit. And this doesn't include geothermal, which is something we're also piloting. So the goal is to make solar, which is what I primarily talked about, because that's what we are ready to run at, the first phase. And then district geothermal, where we share geothermal systems within neighborhoods, handle the heating and cooling load primarily, which then lessens the demand we have to have on those solar systems being dispatched. Great question.
So is the proportion, are you saying it's near 100%?
You're making me do math on the spot. I feel like it's close.
Well, you said we're using
we're at 440 and we have estimated 400.
Yeah, so that's pretty close.
It's not terrible, but it is marginal. The way I think about that is it's using all of the viable solar that we have. Adam's roof, or Rita, your roof, maybe your roof is glorious and you could do 120%, but Jeffrey's roof really has some shade and is like marginal, whether it would be a payback if he did it by himself. In the SEU model, we would do it because we would need it. Does that make sense? So that's in the 400 calculation.
You're saying that the SEU would purchase the panels and place them and bill for the electricity.
It could. I mean, I'm not going to say we would do it because we don't have a utility. We haven't set policy. I can't tell you we would do that. What I can say is in the 400 modeling, we modeled that 30%. And the last thing I wanted to share is that's assuming the technology we have of panels today and what they produce, right? Panels are getting much, much more efficient. And so it is likely that number I gave you will only be better as panels are capable of turning more solar into actual energy production over time.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I got technical. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Alan, you're up next.
Yes, great report. Yeah, I love to see the center of the city be a model for all these designs. Particularly though, and you made brief mention of geothermal. When the development of the center of the city was first put out as an RFP, they asked proposed developers, are you interested in geothermal? Because they're digging down there 300 feet or something. And so is that existing big hole in the ground a potential for geothermal development that could be economically useful for the library, for the building that's being created next door, as well as for the commons area itself. Has that been examined in your plans at all yet?
Not yet. And I'll say that is an excellent question that I don't know the answer to. And I'm gonna stick to I don't know because I want to try to answer it, but I don't know.
Thank you.
I don't see any other hands raised. So in that case, Missy, we really appreciate you being here. Appreciate the presentation. I assume we can, I don't know if the slides are actually, I don't think they are in the agenda. Assume we can get a copy of the slides off the website.
Right now, I'll send them over.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night. Thank you for your service.
Nice evening. Yep. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right. And in that case, we'll move into member updates. I would just ask, because we are at 7:56, if there's any way we can forego any member updates, if they're covered in other items on the agenda, that would be to our benefit. Are there any other member updates knowing that? Okay. In that case, oh, Alan, sorry, I didn't see your hand raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I do want to update that we're continuing to work on the Earth Days beginning now in 2 weeks. I'll send out the current program to everyone. But I spoke at the DDA yesterday, and I raised what is, I think, an important question for us. The DDA parking contract is expiring, and they're making a new contract. We were told that the difficulty of getting cars off was because there's an existing contract with Republic Parking for the cars. That contract is actually contrary to the proposal A that says this land should be developed as a Central Park and Civic Center Commons. And the new contract that is being negotiated, what state it is in, I don't know, should not be contrary to the city code. And I think we should be attentive somehow that the new contract does not reproduce a appropriation of the surface for parking. That is part of the old contract. It should not be in the new contract. And I hope that we can find some way to highlight, to insist, to ring the bell or whatever. My correspondences in speaking at the DDA has not raised any response to that, but it seems a very relevant question in terms of making this space accessible for activation.
All right. Thanks, Alan. If there's nothing else, we'll move out of member updates and move into some of the work group updates. The first is comparable communities. And I don't know if Frank or Rita would like to talk about the Plymouth description that was put forward. Rita, I think you're muted.
I am. And now, we did talk about this last time, but I will just say that Plymouth was a very positive discussion with Paul Sincock, who has been the city manager for, oh my gosh, maybe 30 years. And he is very proud of the Kellogg Park that's in the center of Plymouth. It has a brand new fountain that was funded by a local philanthropic group. It is booked almost constantly, and he and his staff work constantly to book and cover charge for the expenses of use of the space for those that use it. It does have an on-site bathroom that has some management. It has hours, it has external cameras for safety, etc. But in general, when he reported a survey that was done by Eastern Michigan University recently, the community assessment of this space was astoundingly positive. And I think that the percentage was 60% and plus. So that's what I recall. So that's the fastest I think I can do. But they're busy all the time. And they even have remote display of their activities so that people could be at home and check out what's going on downtown. Sounds kind of fun.
Thank you, Rita. Excellent summary. Frank, you want to add something to it?
Just to echo Rita's comments and to mention, I think many of us know that we've had an additional engagement and conversation with folks in Royal Oak about a wonderful new Central Park. As we get multiple conversations under our belt, we start to see some commonalities, and one that jumped out early on and continues 3 for 3, Plymouth, Detroit, and Royal Oak, is the active and very positive involvement of the DDA in each of those communities. I'm still personally baffled a bit why we don't have more common purpose with the DDA on this project. But we don't, but I continue to be hopeful. And it's just in these other communities, it's checkbook time too. The DDA in Royal Oak, contributed around $1 million. Check me on that number, Adam. But for a new front to the library, coincidentally, the library fronts right onto this park in Royal Oak. And our DDA, I think I reported months ago about this. When you look at the early planning documents of our DDA in Ann Arbor, there is very positive comment about the priority for open space and park space in the downtown as a priority. So I'm hopeful that with new leadership at the DDA and growing interest throughout the community in this project, which we can talk about as the agenda moves on, that we'll see more commonality and more shared purpose here to get this firmly established, it being the center of the city. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. Alice?
Yeah, just to reinforce what Frank was saying, the resolution of 2019, which lays out some of the basic purposes of our group, as well as the goals, specifically mentions the DDA and a couple of other important relationships. And it seems like we have a great deal of interest in developing that relationship, and almost an essential one, as well as fulfilling the resolves of that resolution passed in 2019 unanimously by that city council. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thanks, Alice. With that, we'll move into the next update. I think that is from the block partners. And I know that I actually missed this meeting this morning, but Jen, I think, was on, if I recall correctly. Jen, do you want to highlight a little bit about this discussion?
I volunteered as tribute, but I'll make it really fast because I can do block partners and short-term activation at the same time. Jeff was on the meeting this morning on the block partners group, and I think we sort of have a sense that the original survey that was, circulated and, discussed previously, and, Parks raised some objections to, and sort of the start and then stop of the short-term activation group, a lot of it hinged on discussions that were going on, led by Mr. Dahone around issues at Liberty Plaza, challenges and opportunities. So I think that what we really realized was that there's probably an opportunity for short-term activation and block partners to work together, and to really think of ways that we can engage the community, and including State Street Association, Main Street Association, et cetera, and revising the survey that we had, ask about, who would have interest in doing activation specifically at Liberty Plaza. Would they need the whole footprint? Then we would bring in the library lot, but, immediately, what could we do at Liberty Plaza? Who would have interest in activating that space? And really engaging them in the process that way. and getting their ideas so that we could sort of present as part of recommendations that we would make to council. These various stakeholders, these various Block partners are interested in being part of this. Here are some ideas that they have generated around making the space activated, useful, and a place where people want to come and actually enjoy the center of the city. So I think our recommendation would be to work more closely together, but really to sort of follow the lead of the group that Mr. Dahone had brought together in order to address some of the challenges that are happening there and what opportunities might lie. And one of the reasons why we talked about Liberty Plaza specifically is that, there's electricity there. It's easier to pull a permit for the park versus to clear parking. There were several things that we discussed, but to really get a read on that from the Block partners and community stakeholders as to how that space might fit what they envision as being a lively place for, activation and activities within the community. And Jeff, if I missed anything, please let me know, or, Adam yesterday from our conversation, if there's anything I left out.
No, you did it very well. Thank you.
Good. That's excellent. Thank you. And I'll give a little bit of an update around the RFP. And if other folks who are part of that process, please feel free to chime in. We did have just a first discussion of the RFP working group yesterday. And I think that Heather had outlined in her email to everyone on the council around sort of what the standard process is for an RFP for the city. We're going to follow that process. We're going to utilize the engagement of the working group, potentially some additional outside stakeholders as well as a feedback tool. And so we kicked off, and Heather is going to start working with the Parks Department staff, given that the overlap in jurisdiction, including Liberty Plaza and the library lot, as one redevelopment plan. And so she's going to work on those things, and then we're going to get back together after she's got a first draft. She's going to utilize a lot of the Center of the City Task Force work to guide the scope of that first draft. And offered up any other or the opportunity to supply additional comments to her that we may do. And so I think it's going to be a good process. As I mentioned in my previous email, this committee is going to have some opportunity to put some eyes on as well afterwards. But the working group process is working well in the other spots, and so we thought it would be the most timely way to engage this. So I'd say it was a good first discussion, and we look forward to the work that Heather and the park staff is putting forward. All right. That concludes our standing working group updates. The next agenda item is the Arpa funding for Liberty Plaza. And I think we can probably give a thanks to Council Member Dish and Briggs. I didn't look at the vote count, but I'm going to go out on a limb on that one and talk a little bit about that. And I'll certainly open up the floor to Mr. Dahone as well, if he'd like to comment. I just wanted to make some comments as well. I did have the opportunity to participate in the first working group meeting that Mr. Dahone put together and around improving situations at Liberty Plaza and making sure that safety is paramount there. And I think it was a really constructive discussion. And in that discussion, this $100,000 that was approved by council of Arpa funding was brought up as a way of paying for a number of ideas that I think really are going to be developed. I would say didn't feel like things were finalized there, but it was all addressing public safety and encouraging positive interaction in Liberty Plaza, and not pushing folks out who are there, but being welcoming and constructive, and dealing with any trash or things that are left in the park, making sure that it's clean, making sure that there is an opportunity to positively program the park. making sure that that programming is community-wide, engages nonprofits like Avalon Housing or governmental entities like DHHS. Also could include things regarding expungement or opportunities if there are minor offenses where folks could come and engage the mobile courtroom through the prosecutor's office. So there's a lot of ideas being floated. I didn't get the impression that anything was off the table, but I think it was a really good first discussion from my perspective. And I'm pleased to be part of it. I know that Mr. Mahoney was going to work on scheduling another one, but wanted to make sure that council was supportive of putting forward the ARPA funding request. I was glad to see that happened, and so I'm looking forward to future discussions. And so that's the one thing I just want to add about the ARPA funding, and certainly happy to take any questions. I'm sure that our two council members may have may want to say anything too. They probably know far more about this than I do, frankly. But I'm pleased with our direction here, and I'm happy to open the floor up. I see Alice has her hand up. There might be others. Alice, go ahead.
Once again, I do appreciate the efforts to address the issues at Liberty Plaza because that is a very important component of the center of the city. And I'm just not that clear as to how the intersectionality and the application of funds to Liberty Plaza might be also beneficial to the overall project. I'd like that not to be carried in isolation. I think we should really be looking at integrating what we learned from that, at least in other projects, and not just leave them hanging as one isolated part of the development of the center of the city.
Definitely. I think that there's an overall thought process with ensuring, although I don't think the ARPA funding is really thought to be planning resources, but I think the overall thought is to try and as we build out this long-term plan, make sure that we're working together. So I would say certainly the immediate thoughts are more on dealing with some of the issues that could cause safety that are predominantly in Liberty Plaza or almost exclusively in Liberty Plaza. But I hear you on that. And I think that I'll continue to beat that drum too as we have these discussions. But I didn't feel like that was either or sort of philosophy by any means. Alan? Alan, go ahead. Yeah, you should be able to, you're not muted, I don't think, at least.
Thank you. I'm interested in this Liberty Plaza focus group. It has been much on my mind, having spent a lot of time there.
Alan, you need to turn up your sound a bit.
Yeah, I'll get closer. I got an old computer. The element of development there that I consider most important is to give respect to the people who are the regular users and see a users management group of some sort that involves the people who are sort of the regulars there, as well as the immediate neighbors from First Martin, and also to find some support arrangement. Once the DDA talked about downtown ambassadors, I see the potential of interns from the School of Social Work, people who are there to keep their eyes on what needs are and to actually engage that population in positive ways and to encourage their own self-management of the group. I think that is the most important way to see that as a really vibrant place that is, as it were, self-managed by the users. And I haven't seen that element of development discussed and it seems a most important element besides looking at the police supervision. There's a lot of, when I am there, many people tell me that that is a place where the police look where there is problems, and also where the police overlook where there is problems. So I think that giving some initiative and self-respect and management authority to the people who are regular users needs to be part of the sense of how do we develop that as a place that is wholesome and exciting. I just want to keep putting that pebble in our pond.
Thank you for doing that, Alan. Appreciate it. Frank?
I guess I just want to piggyback on what Alan said. The issues of Liberty Plaza are not unique to Ann Arbor. I'm aware of these kinds of situations in other communities. And I would hope that, I don't know whose responsibilities it would be, but I would hope that we would look at best practices as it applies to this kind of situation. And back to our comparable communities group, we did see, especially on our site visit to Detroit, what looked like some very thoughtful, effective management of urban downtown parks and public spaces. And so I think there's probably some excellent templates out there for us to be aware of. Thank you.
Definitely, Frank, and I appreciate the reference too, because I know that was a big part of the conversation in Detroit, and I'll definitely surface that in these discussions too. Councilmember Briggs, I think, had her hand up. Erica?
Rita may have put her hand up first, I think.
Oh, I missed.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to briefly say, I think one of the big pieces that, in response to comparable communities in Detroit, that city staff has been saying for quite some time, and it has come up within those earlier sort of meetings around Liberty Plaza, is the need for programming. Successful urban spaces require programming to be healthy often especially when they're having issues like this. So this is something that Parks staff has noted for a long time in the PROS plan, and something that I think Mr. Dehoney has mentioned as well.
Thank you, Erica. And Rita.
Thanks. This is just another way to say kind of the same thing. I do agree that programming is needed, but I would really not want programming to be something that ends up pushing out people that are currently there. So I do think that it's really something to be addressed carefully. And I think Alan has mentioned some of the important points, which I won't repeat. So that's my concern, is like, we have people there. Let's take care of each other there. Thanks.
Thank you, Rita. Unless there are any other questions, we can move on to the next agenda item and get into discussion around the Parks Advisory Commission. And so, we received a request from park staff to present to a future Parks Advisory Commission meeting. And not to put Stephen on the, actually we lost Stephen again.
Yeah, we lost him. He was here by phone for a little while, but now I'm not seeing him.
I think I saw him fall off. Rita, you put your hand up. I don't know if you wanted to. You're muted.
Yeah, sorry. I did. I just wanted to call out, since we're in a sort of intermediate place, that one of the items was on our prior section was fundraising, and we didn't touch that in our discussion.
Oh, you know what? We didn't. We have not met again on that yet, Rita. So I apologize.
All right, thanks.
We did just add somebody. Is that Stephen?
I think it's Stephen. Let's hope it's Stephen.
Stephen, are you here?
Hey, it's Steve.
All right.
Hi.
Excellent.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes,
I don't
we
have
can.
anything to contribute at the moment. I am in fact here.
Excellent. That's okay. We were just starting to talk about a report to the Parks Advisory Commission, and we noticed that you were absent, and I didn't want to continue if we could grab you back on here. So, this was done. I think we had a very good discussion with park staff. And I think that their request was that we come in and provide an update on our work to the Parks Advisory Commission, and I think also talk about how we can work together. It seemed to be a very positive, symbiotic approach, is what I took away from that discussion. And certainly, I think from what Heather's begun to indicate in the RFP development, there's a strong desire to work together around that. So I wanted to start the discussion. I'd like to be able to get into the Parks Advisory Commission in sometime in the next 30 to 60 days. And so we wanted to check in here and gather thoughts on strategy. And then we can even have an offline discussion or form a small working group of folks who would like to get together and put together that presentation for the Parks Advisory Committee. I don't want to necessarily get into the actual meat of the presentation, but ideas on what we should be talking about and strategy, I think, would be helpful. And since I am not familiar with a PAC meeting, I'd like to have Stephen, and I know we have a number of hands that just shot up here, be able to comment on next steps. So Eric, I think you had, Stephen,
yeah.
You go first if you like, and then we can have Councilmember Briggs and then Alan.
Yeah, great. And Councilmember Briggs is also familiar with the typical process. I mean, PAC meets monthly, 4 o'clock in the afternoons at City Hall or other, online presence over the last couple of years. But yeah, I mean, the pump is primed. I mean, the committee is ready to hear more details about specifics and like what specific action items it should take up. And in the liaison role, I do report back and have over the last several months to try to just give an overview as to what this group is doing in terms of then how we're breaking ourselves up into subcommittees and kind of tackling the approach from that perspective. So the Parks Advisory Commission is, as it says in the title, it's advisory. We go tell City Council what we think City Council should do with regard to the expenditure of funds in the parks, acquisition of lands to be used as parks or other natural areas. We work closely with the super awesome parks staff, the sort of who makes all those dreams come true. But there's something, 160 parks in the city, and they're all unique and awesome. And programming those and kind of keeping that going that's the sort of the task of the Parks Advisory Commission. So for things like this, it seems maybe most analogous to the skate park in Vets Park, which involved like a nonprofit that was focused on the success of this particular idea and having it go from an idea to reality, and then the ongoing sort of maintenance and programming around that space. We recently just asked for city to go forward with funding for lighting for that space for the skate park, which is the kind of thing that kind of goes forward from on the commission's perspective. So with regard to this space, obviously continue to be in discussions with regard to Library Plaza. I mean, Kemp's House is on the list of things that Parks Commission is sort of on the table, but I don't recall us having specific discussions about programming there or expenditures there or other activities there for good or bad or one way or the other in the time that I've been on the commission. The commission's got a lot of long timers on it. It's not necessarily, it's not the hotbed of revolution, but it's, going to be a positive and certainly a receptive organization to good ideas for what to do with this space, sort of in the how can we help spirit. So that's how I would see it. And like I said, we're certainly ready within the next month or two I anticipate there's room on the agenda to come in, or however it's to be done, to present the ideas and what this group sees as the next part of that conversation. So that's what I would say about it. I don't know, Councilmember Briggs probably has more additional points to bring to the discussion, but hope it's helpful.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Stephen.
I think that was a great overview of PAC, and I'm just a couple months into the commission as a council member liaison. Kind of what I heard from park staff was really wanting to get PAC's insight into the RFP process, and so Stephen's been doing a good job updating on kind of what the commission is doing month by month, but I think it might be important for that presentation to really focus in on where we're at in terms of getting information back from the RFI, and then discussing the next steps in terms of fundraising, and specifically what's envisioned to potentially go into that RFP and get some feedback on that, and understand how PAC would like to be engaged in that process moving forward, and what type of check-ins they believe that they would need, need to see. Would it need to be more staff? Would it need to be more PAC? And so part of that, I would assume that, Heather might be discussing a little bit, but obviously, park staff really wanted to get PAC's feedback. And in terms of a working group, I could imagine, Adam, I would assume that you might be making that presentation, or maybe, I don't know if Heather would be there as well, but, that between, Stephen and you and me, that would be a nice small working group to be, thinking about what exactly to present to PAC.
Thank you, Erica. And thank you, Stephen. Both helpful feedback. I'm going to go in. I think the order I saw here was Alan, Alice, and then Frank. Alan, you go ahead.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear there's interest and receptivity. In the many times back in the old days when I tried to propose these ideas, Parks was much less receptive to any sense of the development of this overall area. I think it would be useful if we had indeed a regular report to the Parks Advisory Commission about what is happening in this Central Park and Civic Center Commons. And while it is not explicitly directed as within the domain of the park administration, while some of it is, it's definitely the city Central Park. We should have a regular communication to it. The one point I want to raise is that in the bond issue that created the green belt, that was created for both acquisition and management of parkland in the city and around the city. A city council resolution subsequently restricted the in the city use to only acquisition. And that is a city council resolution. And I think that we in our group and the Parks Commission itself should seek to overturn or revise or alter that old city council resolution so that bond money that is for bonded for acquisition and management could actually be used for acquisition and management within the city, and that would be beneficial in the development of the area, the center of the city area that we are working for. So I want that question to begin to be discussed again, to reconsider the conditions of that old city council restriction on how the people voted for the bond issue to be both for acquisition and management. We could definitely use it for management, and there's some land that could also be well acquisition. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Alice, you're up next, and then Frank.
I think Frank was up first.
Oh, all right. Frank, feel free. You're muted.
I think one of the complicating factors is the multiple jurisdictions, I'll call it, of the public land on the block with Liberty Plaza being part of parks. I don't know, I should know this. If the Kemp House is under the Parks Department as well, and then there's this, everything else is sort of public land. It almost seems like we need to look at some, hybrid management system for all of this public land in its various categories, because it seems a little awkward, to say the least, at this point. The other thing I want to point out is that there seems to be, a lot of change of leadership. The district library, the DDA, and I guess Parks is in the process of, and maybe that's already happened, a new director of the Parks Department. But there's going to be fresh thinking, and I think there's a kind of a magic moment here when we can really begin to get people looking towards the possibilities of this. And I've been hearing encouraging things kind of secondhand that the library will be open to more creative conversations and collaboration going forward. So just want to mention those items. And maybe this does speak to a working group. I didn't quite catch Erica's. Did you have 3 people in mind for a working group, Erica?
I was just thinking that since that Adam, I, and Stephen might be able to work on the presentation to pack.
Okay. I just didn't hear the names.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Alice, and then Erica.
Yeah, sort of in support of what Frank's saying, and also Erica, I do want to recall that in the current PROS plan, and hopefully in the future, we'll have a PROS plan that still includes the special properties that Parks co-manages with other governance bodies. And I think Kemp House is one of those. That we have a model. It's not really a one-size-fits-all model, but we do have a precedent within the parks, within the PROS plan, that encompasses what is called special properties, like Farmers Market, quite different from Cobblestone Farm, quite different from Kemp House, and at the moment I forget the other 2, but this is something that is not suddenly being considered. This is something that has a history of working and of benefiting all those properties, and for the use of the citizens of the area and visitors as well. So I just wanted to mention that is in the PROS plan, and it's another one of those things that is happening now, is the revision of that PROS plan. I think we should be very aware of the timeliness of several of the things we've discussed this evening.
Thank you, Erica. Or Alice, rather. Sorry, Erica.
And I just wanted to, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but I just wanted to, just as the point of clarification, this got brought up at the last meeting. And since Alan just kind of brought it up around Greenbelt funds, Heather had nicely looked at after the last meeting and sent out a little information on this. It's the city's legal opinion has been that management with regards to how the ballot initiative is around the Greenbelt, management is associated with the perpetual monitoring and enforcement of the city's land rights that have been acquired. So not physical improvement and maintenance, just a point of clarification. So legal staff has looked at this earlier, and I'm not sure that it's necessarily, there's some difference of opinion on that, just as a point of clarification.
All right, thank you, Erica. So I will suggest a working group. We'll take that offline a little bit after this meeting. And if you really want to be a part of it, please shoot me a quick email, and then we will do that. It will just be like an ad hoc working group to try and move this forward and get the presentation ready. And we'll also work on scheduling a time with Parks, and we will just let folks know about that time. More than welcome to attend the meeting if you would like and support. we will do that communication. Try not to reply so that we don't get in violation of the Open Meetings Act. But just as a heads up, that's the way we'll go about it. And then we'll.
Sounds good. I consent. Sorry, I was going to say I consent with Erica volunteering me for the committee.
Excellent. I was going to put you on the list as a default.
I second it.
Okay. All right, that sounds good. Excellent. Thank you very much. I took a bunch of notes for this, and we will work on creating a presentation for that off of this. So it's excellent. The next item on our agenda is the issues exploration. Heather, did you want to start? Did you want to hit on this a little bit? I know there's an attachment here.
Yeah, that attachment. So that was revived from almost a year ago. So this is a document that started just documenting the discussion and some of the issues, concerns, and possibilities with many of the things that were brought up in the resolution at the resolution from 2019 that was brought up at the last meeting and has been brought up again tonight. So I thought it would be good to bring this forward again, just so we have a starting point to talk about our discussion. And then Mr. Dehoney is here today. Obviously, in that resolution, it directs the city administrator to do a number of things. I do want people to keep in mind, that Mr. Dehoney is new on the scene and is still getting up to speed, especially on this project, which is complicated and has a lot of history and a lot of emotions and politics behind it. So it's a lot to sort through. So I just want you to have compassion towards him, as we go into this discussion, that he is still getting up to speed on this project. But with that, I think, maybe we just open the floor and, if people want to put out questions or ideas, suggestions, anything that would help move some of these things forward, because I guess I will also note that a lot of these the resolves in that resolution are easier said than done. There are, we have to find funding, we have to find staffing, we have to logistically figure it out. So, and that's part of the charge of this group, is figuring out how we move things forward. So with that, I open it up, especially to any ideas. I think that would be welcome.
Rita has her hand up.
Rita, please.
Well, I haven't studied it really in depth, but I do think that it reflects a lot of the 2019 resolution. And I think that since it is parsed in the sections that you've placed it, Heather, that we should prioritize it and focus on elements of it and develop work groups that address them. So I don't know if that is appropriate for us to do tonight, but I do think that that's a way to approach them. If there are things that are more directed toward the PAC process, let's do that. But I think that it has to be broken down.
I'm a little confused which document we're actually working on right now. Is this the resolution, or is it that May 6, 2021?
Yeah, I'm referencing the May 6, 2021 document, which actually addresses a lot of what was in that resolution.
Oh, okay.
It's a document that Mr. Crawford and I started putting together back then, just to start tracking our conversations about these items and really just looking at it from almost like a SWOT analysis, like what are the potential solutions to things, but then what are also the issues that we need to overcome.
I did look at it prior to the meeting, but would it be helpful to place that document up so that we could look at it, or is that?
Yeah, if you don't mind bearing with me as I pull that up, I will pull that up, but please continue the conversation while I do that.
Right. Alice, you've got your hand up. Why don't we go to you while we...
I want to, I'm not quite sure where to start. And I think that's part of the problem is that when you have this document, unnamed and unauthored, really, and then you have the resolution, I think we should have a clear correlation between the relevant sections of the resolution and the relevant issues in the document, which doesn't have a name and doesn't have an author at this point. And I think I'd also like to invite Mr. Tahoney to ask the questions that seem needing to be asked if there are empty spaces where there should be some information in either of the documents. For instance, some of the things in the resolution are sort of related more to past history, and some of them have never been really fully addressed. And I think that discord between the two documents is where we get confused as a body trying to be advisory to City Council. It is City Council's direction that was expressed in the 2019 resolution, and it's not clear where we are now with the document that is supposedly linked in most ways, or maybe some ways, to that resolution. So I want to go toward clarification and clear vision in this situation, rather than trying to mash things together just to get them covered. So I just want to be efficient and clear about where we're going. And also, I think we should be more public about it. I think we should have that resolution in front of us, maybe a link to it in all of our agendas, and also some reference point, like, is the document we're working with that relates to Tom Crawford's times with working with Heather and under our the input that we've had as a body. I think we should kind of clean that up, and so that we don't find ourselves sort of heading down paths that we've either been down before, or that we haven't found, or that we haven't explored before, and somewhere in between there we get lost. So I would like for us to try to think clearly about what's being accomplished by having these two things, which are very closely related, being elaborated on in different ways. It's kind of advisory, maybe, and as being part of an advisory body, but I hope we see clear direction in progress, because it has been 3 years since the resolution was passed, almost 3 years.
I'm muted. Erica.
Sorry, my dog is barking in the background. So, yeah, I guess one point I would note, I think this is helpful to have kind of these different points. I think it's, we obviously discussed this last year, but, these are items that have been discussed in the past, but they haven't, as to your point, they haven't really been prioritized by this group in terms of the importance of how this group views them. And since these were the recommendations of a previous council, I don't know that they, that's just should maybe be taken into account as well, that there may need to be some advice from Council of Commons on sort of prioritization of these elements.
Other thoughts or comments on this? We got a few folks here. Frank.
Other than attending numerous council meetings, I really don't know how to evaluate a resolution like this. It seems like if a resolution is passed, and granted councils are changing with every election, but unless there's some revision that's documented in a future resolution, it seems like a resolution passed in December of 2019 that has not been revised by the current city council would still stand and be something that should be there should be serious attempts to implement. Am I being naive about city government? I don't know.
No, that's correct. I mean, it's the policy that we have on the books that we're working with, that staff is meant to work with, where, things got stalled out was with COVID, for, it being one of the issues. And then just the turnover in city administrators as well. And the budget, we were kind of in a budget crisis for a while too. So there was a lot of attention that was being paid to that. So I would say that it was stalled out. And again, a lot of these items are a little bit easier said than done. So it's really, we need to figure out how it can, where the funding would come to implement some of these things, how exactly to implement some of these things, or some of them, make decisions. Maybe some of them are kind of taken care of or not, because there are, for example, there's restrooms available at the library and at the ride. Is that good enough, or do we want to think about something more? So that's what I think the work of this group is to really provide some sound advice to City Council about how some of these things move forward, or if some of them don't seem, as meaningful or relevant anymore. Maybe, we ask that priority is put towards something else related to center of the city.
Just quick response. Wow, is that me? I was reminded that a discussion well, at least a year ago, about how to assign the debt that reflects the 36 surface parking places. And I was puzzled by how the overall debt service on the structure is determined. And I recall having conversations with people I felt would know the answer to that question, local attorneys who've been involved in city government, et cetera. And I came away pretty well convinced that there isn't a parking spot by parking space calculation of debt. It's an overall debt. And it just seems like we haven't made any headway on that first whole section of the economic consequences of eliminating the parking. But anyway.
Yeah, and my understanding, I think your understanding is correct that it's an overall debt, and I think that was broken down to determine, what maybe the surface lot contributed to helping pay back that overall debt. And I know at one point there were negotiations going on between the DDA's attorney and our attorney's office regarding, because it's tied to the parking agreement. I think also that got a little bit stalled out, but with the new DDA director on board, aware of this and the recent discussions that we've had, or come up again regarding the items in the resolution. So he's well versed on that, and potentially we will be coming to the next meeting or a meeting after that to start addressing that topic. But again, he's have compassion because he is new on board and is also trying to figure all of this out among all the many other things that he's getting up to speed on.
Boy, really doing a deep dive on that question and getting resolution would really, I think, help move things along. If that is in some people's minds a point we're stuck on, let's get that resolved.
Yeah, and I would also ask this group, and this is my thinking as an urban planner, that I'll just interject that if we are to remove the parking there permanently, there is some danger in just leaving it as a blank open space, because then it becomes dead space. So I would just kind of ask us to think more and more about if we are removing the parking immediately, what is it that we can do to activate? And I know we're talking about activation, something that's not going to allow it to just sit there as a dead space.
Some of the ideas that I've heard talked about is not necessarily going from 36 to 0, but to in stages remove parking over a period of time, so that we can demonstrate the successful use of a portion of that space. For example, the west end and the area that goes a bit north by the elevator shaft, the wide part. Anyhow, it doesn't have to, for discussion and conceptual purposes, doesn't have to be all of it at once. But I think we and the general public that we talk to, want to see progress, and we want to do it in a responsible way where, we're that would be productive and positive.
I'm gonna note that down as an idea, potential solution.
I don't know who is next, Alan or Alice. So I will just, Alice, why don't you go ahead and then we can have Alan.
Okay. I still would like to emphasize that I think when there's doubt as to what to tackle first, that we could stick to the 2019 resolution. And I think this momentary discussion of resolving the parking is a good point as an example. I think we would get farther on some things by sticking to the ones that are in the 2019 resolution, because they're all related. But I think that those are the things that are these resolutions, the resolves in that resolution, really are out there as a standing request from the public through their city council at the time. And I just don't want us to get distracted by things that aren't mentioned in the resolution, because I think all of those will come along with the major resolves in that resolution. I think, like, for instance, addressing restrooms first is probably not the way to go, because it will be distraction from just having this space available for whatever happens. And another, here and there are other things that may be on that document. If we are going to focus on the document, I think it should be part of the agenda every month. But I think it's more important to have that resolution in front of us at all times so that we don't get distracted by the smaller issues, which will be resolved through future action. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.
All right, thank you, Alice. Alan?
Thank you. Well,
barely hear you, Alan.
I feel some deja vu here. There's these questions of getting rid of the parking, activating the space, Wi-Fi, staging, furniture, play area. This has been out there, and one way or another, it has not been discussed. It has not been dealt with. It has been postponed. It is all very simple if there was a commitment actually to follow the people's vote to develop this as a central park and as a civic center commons. And the resistance to that, the DDA in 44 meetings has not put this on the agenda. The library has not put this on the agenda. The city administrator has not done all these things in that exploration that are identified for the city administrator to pursue, getting the block group together, getting people actually together to see what can be done. It is very frustrating. I think the city council resolution from a while ago that says we'll get internet connectivity there. There is a city program toward internet connectivity. The center of the city is way down, from what I heard, way down on the priorities after everything else is done. Why is that? Getting the utilities, it is not such a big deal. If people who are responsible in the city would actually do what has been directed by the city council. And I hope that Mr. Mahoney, that you will take some initiative in actually pursuing what has been the direction of the city council, what have been the questions put forward as orienting questions, and begin to get this done. It is not rocket science. It is just doing what the people voted to have done and what the city councils at various times. There's also the resolution of October 5, 2020 that specifies work to be done on this. If what would be said to be done would be done, we'd be much further ahead. It is not a dead space. It is a space that, if it were identified as a usable space, and get the cars off and let some furniture be on there, let there be some chalking and some painting and some play going on, it would begin to be a live space. It's a dead space because it's dedicated to cars and to a contract, an antiquated contract that keeps cars there and makes it exceedingly difficult for anybody to do anything else there. but I do hope that you all come to the Earth Days and see that it can be activated on the library lot, and that with the Liberty Plaza, this can be a living place, a cone of white light in the center of the city that gathers people and can be a real downtown destination. But there is an inertia, a static inertia that says, don't let it happen one way or another. There's a reason why not, why not, why not. There are more reasons why, and I hope that we will do it.
All right, thank you, Alan.
Yes, I know.
Rita, you're up. And then I'm going to make a suggestion for this because we're getting pretty close to 9 o'clock.
Sorry, that was not an intentional hand raise.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'm going to suggest that we resurface this again. It seems like folks are starting to take a look at it again. It has been a long time, as Heather indicated. So why don't we keep this as an agenda item for the next meeting? And in between now and then, we can have a chance to take a look at it more. And you can send any additions. Heather, as you noted, was taking some notes in there. We can send any additions we want to have to Heather, and we can bring this back up again. So,
Adam, I think that we should make sure that Mr. Dahoney did not have an unintentional hand up, and if he's still would like to talk, we don't skip that.
Thank you. I did put my hand up and I don't want to belabor it because I know we're near the end of the meeting. But if you sort of step back and look at where we are, and I don't offer this as an excuse, but I think a reasoned look at why we might have some level of struggling. What I've been told is there's a certain curiosity within the Parks Advisory Group because they're not really clear on exactly what this group is doing and where it's going. We've had a brand new DDA director. We've got a brand new city law director. We've got a parks director job that has not yet been filled. We've got a brand new library director. You've got a city administrator that's in the process of becoming permanent, but that's not done yet. You've got documents that were, if I understand it correctly, one issued by a previous city administrator and a resolution passed by a prior city council. You've got an election coming where we will have at least some new council members. And the document that we were just looking at a few minutes ago, if you didn't know anything about it, to the naked eye, it appears to be a series of tasks that's being called for to be done. And I think we may be making an assumption that all of this new leadership knows, well, what are the tasks for? What are you really asking me to do? Why am I doing that? To assume that all the people in new leadership knows what's going on, I don't think they do, because when I talk to people, they don't have the institutional knowledge. I certainly don't have it. And the priority of a prior council in terms of issuing a resolution, what we lose as seats change and people change is there's 50 things to be done in running a city. Where does this fall? And I think some of us are struggling with that because we either haven't been asked to make that a top 10 thing or even have enough clarity around, what exactly are you asking me to do? So I'm not trying to speak for all of the new leaders. I just, in conversations, I'm doing a lot of listening to people because I'm still learning the city. And I think we need clarity between the documents. I think we need some kind of a refresher for all of us that are new on exactly what is the priority and what should we be trying to accomplish in the near term. I'm going to present a budget to City Council on the 18th. And I don't know ultimately what they will pass, but resolving some of these issues is not really part of what I'm going to be talking about. It just isn't. And I won't get into Liberty Plaza. I'll save that till next time. But I think the bottom line point I'm trying to convey to our group, which I'm happy to be a member of, is there is some level of confusion amongst several people on just where this is, where it should be, and what are the top priority things that are expected to be accomplished in order to make the commons be consistent with the vision that people had when they passed the ballot initiative. I just think that's a real thing that's there and it's got to be addressed.
Thank you, Mr. Downey.
Yep, I'll second that. Thank you as well. And I will say, as somebody who has had more of a crash course in this over the last year, I appreciate the statement around confusion because there's a lot of history here, and it's definitely not clear.
Hey, I turned 71 today.
Happy birthday, Ken.
I'm in my 70s now.
Congratulations. Welcome.
May I just interject that's why I was looking at going back to the 2019 resolution, because it is much skinnier, much more lean, whereas a list of 50 tasks is not lean. And it does sound like Mr. Downey has hinted at an approach, which might be to recognize these new leaders in our city and find a way to succinctly project what they might need to know if they're to help us move this forward. We don't have much time. It feels like we don't have much time to catch up, but we might have a way to put this on the table so that it does not get forgotten, but we listen and learn. We listen what needs to be heard or learned, and we do our best to help the new leaders understand what we're about, which I could sum up for myself as making a place that's really important to the character and continuance of good civic life in this town. So that's kind of high-minded maybe, but there are specific issues that we need to address that I think the resolution reflects where we have been and where we're still heading. But new leaders are not aware of that, as Mr. Dohoney said. So I think that's probably a project we should undertake quite soon.
I think that's a fair point, Alice. Why don't we have just maybe a joint discussion at the next meeting around both this, revisit this, and revisit the resolution too. We'll pull that up as well. We have one other item on the agenda tonight, and that's to talk about what we want to talk about with City Council. I'm gonna suggest a few things that we do rather than really have that discussion right now, because I think what Mr. Dohoney said, I took some notes during it. I think it provides a good degree of reflection for us to consider before we bring this up. And I think what the three main areas that I noted that I think we'll want to ponder before we go into actually describing that presentation or creating it are, what has been done, not just by this group, but all of the other stuff that has come before us to try and create some clarity. What are we doing right now? And then where do we want to go and what are our asks of council? And I feel like those are the three buckets if you will, that you know, we're going to want to think about and get ready for a council presentation. And I know if others have other things, just briefly, but I feel like if we're going to present to City Council, these are the things that we need to make sure that if our goal is a clear message and a series of next steps, we're going to have to answer those questions. So I would just like us to all think about those things, and I can send them out in an email after this, and for folks to think about. And certainly if there are other questions that folks believe need to be thought of in prep for that City Council discussion, you know, please feel free to surface them too. Are folks okay with tabling that a little bit then until next time and think about those questions?
Yes, but to think about them.
Yes, I will send out an email to everybody here with those items. So that was the development recommendations report. That brings us to next agenda items. So I think we've got a re-review of the Center of the City exploration issues, as well as the City Council resolution. Those are two agenda items we talked about. We're going to have a discussion around what we report to City Council. And then we may or may not, depending on timing, have a few other items related to the RFP and or Parks Advisory Committee updates. So we'll those are at least some action items. Are there other items on the agenda that folks would like to have on the agenda, at least as of right now? All right. And unless there are any other items,
those we'd be well ahead.
Oh, sorry, Alan, go ahead.
I said if we could deal with those, we would be well ahead.
Unless there are other items, we're back at public comment.
And we have Robert Black.
Thank you, Heather. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes, thank you. Nice job, you guys. I'm a little bit hopeful tonight, and especially happy birthday to Alice. Not only is my birthday in 11 days, and I am also an architect, and we have a mutual friend who did a lot to shape Ann Arbor, Peter Pollack, who has passed away, but his spirit lives as a planner. And I just want to say thank you, Alice, for bringing forward the thing that's needed here, which you said, clarification and clear vision. Keep the resolution visible. If I was facilitating this with you guys, and I'm pretty damn good at this, or there's a handful of other world-class facilitators that would drive you into this bigger picture so that these little petty concerns will get solved along the way very easily. You'll be surprised what help shows up when you have a clarity of vision. And Mr. Dohoney, thank you. You said step back and take a look at where we're at. And then he said, it's not clear what the council is doing. Where are you going? I agree. I've said this. I have been to every single one of your meetings and spoken at beginning and end public comment. Nobody else has done that. I'm the only person that's done it that cares enough to help you get this thing right. And so, as he said, that list of issues appears to be tasks. It's just, you waste your time to talk about those right now. So he said, where this is and where it should be going is what you need to figure out. And what are the top level things that need to be accomplished to make the vision consistent with the voters' intentions. Let's keep that front and center. Develop a vision, create a plan to a schedule to achievable goals in the short term, and get yourself a vision for the longer term. The bicentennial of Ann Arbor is in 2024. You have great, Missy Stoltz here tonight was a helpful process to bring you forward into the next step. Use her. Use OSI and A20. Go to Leslie Science Center. That's an example of a project that was done when Ron Olson was head of Parks. Amy Curis was out there. And we worked in a partnership with Parks to create that learning center for sustainability. And before that, Dave Conkle, the city energy coordinator, myself as Energy Commission chair, and my partner Wayne Appleyard at Sun Structures Architects, who designed that building with partnership of Mayor John Heifcha, who stopped the neighborhood from building this extravagant project to create the Leslie Science Center lab. It is a sustainable 4 kilowatt solar electric, captures rainwater, integrated with community project. We also set up a very simple demonstration building out there, which is what Missy Stoltz was talking about to do on the Commons. That little learning center helped people understand the power of what Leslie Science Center is today. So there's an example. I could go on, but I want to end with one thing just very quickly about, energy, food, water, waste, all these things are important. But it's the people that matter, and it's the relationship of the people. It's the personal and the political disalignments that need to be brought into alignment very quickly here, because we do not have time, given our global and local paradigm shifts that are happening as we speak. So I'll close with this. Last June 25th, Rita and Frank and I were going to meet on the 4th and Liberty at the lovely little restaurant. We were waiting for our table. So we took a walk down Liberty Street and looked at all the connections from Liberty Street between the buildings, the Christian Science store, Jerusalem Garden, and others, down to the Liberty Plaza. Sitting there was a man named Kenneth who had lived 6 months in LA, and he sleeps under the canopy of the Spark building and the First Martin building. We had a lovely chat. I don't know, Rita, maybe you remember this, and Frank. We had a lovely chat with Kenneth. He moved to Ann Arbor. You wouldn't know it looking at him, but he used to play 4 people in chess all at the same time. And he takes care of that building. We said, Kenneth, what do you like about this park? He said, well, I like the atmosphere. And he likes the Sonic lunches that are there. And he likes the church that brings pizza on Friday night. There's a guy who can tell you how this commons could work. He also knows the people that get in trouble there. So let's talk about connecting the whole community with a much broader vision and a much deeper vision here. And let's get this sucker moving forward. Because I don't want to waste my breath. I'm going to be 70, I'm 72, I'm going to be 73, Alice. So let's stay around here and get this thing done. And I applaud you guys for working on this, but let's get some professional help to facilitate this group and get you set to a vision so you can move forward. And then you'll have actually something to tell City Council. What has been done, what are we doing, and where are we going, and what are the asks for City Council? Former Mayor Lou Belcher would say, give them no more than 5 questions and maybe 3, and keep it simple and just go with some direction that will help move this thing forward. By God, it's time. We don't have time to do anything else in the world right now. So you are the leaders. Let's go do it. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. Anybody else, Heather?
No, I don't see anybody else.
Okay. Well, in that case, we're at the motion is always in order, adjournment. But I do just want to say again, happy birthday to Alice. And thank you for spending your evening with us. So.
Congratulations on the best party ever for your birthday.
We're your gift.
All right. Well, everybody have a wonderful evening, and I will send out this email tomorrow.
Yeah. Happy birthday to all.
Yep.
Happy birthday, Alice.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.